Thank you very much. First, I want to say that it's always extraordinary to see so many people coming to see a 1961 French movie, black and white, with subtitle. If you want to kill somebody and you say out there, you go out there and you say, are you going to watch a 1961 black and white French movie with subtitles? They're going, what are you talking about? It's you panicking them. You know that some kids do not even watch a film in black and white. They refuse. They ask you the first, because I taught for many years, is this in color? That's the first question. If it's not in color, it's not good. So it has like this kind of like we have been going, and that I want to make a statement about film today. Film today has been going into simplified. We simplified everything for really a big number of people. So the content is minimum content, maximum visual. Visual. I make statement often, and I mean, if you know me, you know I'm very strong on that. Visual is primitive. And let me tell you why. If you put images in front of someone, they just get mesmerized by it. There is no content. The content of film is really what makes film an art form. If you don't have a content, you can have a visual. Obviously, I'm not questioning visual, but it has to be a content. Content is what makes a film. When cinema is impacting you emotionally, intellectually, it's because there is content. So this is a 1961 film, and you're going to realize this film at this time are coming back from a very important time. It's a time after war. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about where François Truffaut is coming from. François Truffaut is the director of JULES and JIM. The film was made in 1961. But again, like before I start with this, I want to tell you we have film. I do a Japanese film series in Montclair. I have a space in Livingston where I do all kind of independent film. I show film in Chatham. I show film all the area. If you go on my email or my website, you will see everything. But let's talk about 1961 or 1960 in France. After the war, 1945. Where is movies in 1945 in Europe? In 1945 in Europe, no film were made in Europe, basically none, besides the Nazi making propaganda film, or beside Les Enfants du Paradis of Marcel Carné, who was really shot in France during World War II. The only film were coming up after this time is the Italian. The Italian in 1948 come with a neo-realist with Vittorio De Sica, Roberto Rossellini, and they start a new wave of film. This is talking about 46, 47 up to the 1950s. It's a simple film with a lot of social content and a very new way of doing it. So they're going on the street, very small budget, they make very strong film. They go to this place, all of them together, to a place that's called La Cinémathèque, who used to be run by Henri Langlois, who was this guy who was a fanatic of film, like a little bit like I am, you know, and he used to bring film from all over the world. And these young kids, 20, 22, watch so many films. And from there, they develop an idea to rebel against the establishment and start to be filmmaker. The first one who make a film, it's Claude Chabrol, who is called Le Beau Serge in 1958. And after the first film we consider it as the first film of the French New Wave, is by François Truffaut in 1959, who is called 400 Blows. And I just showed this a few weeks ago. And this was the first big break, because we're not talking about film for entertainment. We're talking film, they call this cinéma réalité. Everything is reality. He was based 400 Blows on his own life, where he was in school with his parents, with his life, very raw in a way that is just telling you about his difficult part of life and education and social statement. So this is a continuation of the neo-realist. So at the same time of 1959, you have François Truffaut. You have another great, really one of the biggest, certainly, of the history of cinema, Jean-Luc Godard, who's talked with Breathless, who is going to revolution the world, too, about how we make film. So these people are not just a movement of cinema. They are the revolution in cinema. And of course, you know, people know how much I really don't really like Tarantino for different things, but I have to give him credit or whatever it is, because when he did Pulp Fiction, he went straight to Godard. And if you watch these two guys, Tarantino and Godard, you realize new film of the 90s, the new wave of the 90s, was taken from the 60s. So what is the place of these guys? They want to do a cinema with social, with real, with strong, and with made with not much. See, the problem with industry of cinema was all a lot of money to make a film. These guys say, we can make it with very little. Still, you know, not so little, but still, you know, with going and shooting in Paris, going and shooting with non-professional actors, with whatever they could, and improvising a lot. So this is like the base of the French New Wave. The French New Wave will run from 1955 at the beginning, 1959 the first film, to early 1970s. So during, just to show, I mean, what I found extraordinary is it's a young man who is interesting by so many things, and especially by his story. So he talked to Henri Serre, and they got together, and obviously he gave him the right for the book. And in 1959 he dies. So he dies, Henri Serre dies before the film is made. Truffaut does not know really what to do. He gets somebody to write the script, and they write the script. In the script, what made the script in one way, and it's just a few more things I have to tell you before you watch it, you have this extraordinary actress who was very, very famous at the time already, is Jeanne Moreau. I don't know if you heard about Jeanne Moreau. Is like what Brigitte Bardot was in the 1968 or 69, she was already in the 1950s. She made so many films, and she was such an extraordinary and a strong presence that she was really great. She wanted to be a part of this film. And we have two other characters who are the German character, Oskar Werner, who was somebody who played a different thing. So Truffaut went around, he looked for him, and he got him. And after this, it got Henri Serre, who is the other actor. So you have three main characters in this film. You have Jeanne Moreau, who is at the middle. You know, I love when they write like a comment on the film and they say, this is a love triangle, you know. I mean, it's just, what do they want? They want to sell Netflix or whatever. I don't know what they want to do, but it's much more complex than this. So you're going to watch a film based on these three people and with their relationship. What in 1961 we used to do in film, it's developing character, developing story, having a meaning and having a message. So these films are very, very strong in the message. When you see the film, you're going to be able to be impacted by who other people are and what they're trying to see. Remember, he's not 30 years old. When he finished this film, Truffaut is not 30 years old. He's a little bit less than 30. Just to tell you a little bit more about him too, he died very young. He died at 53 years old of brain cancer, having made like more than 20 films. These films are extraordinary. He is like considered even by great filmmaker, like one of the great filmmakers of the 20th century. And if you have the time to watch his films, you should go back to there. And not just watch 400 Blows and JULES and JIM, but I hope doing a series very soon, or like maybe in a couple of years, about the last three films he did. And the last three films he did are as powerful than the first one with the same question. Truffaut was all the time questioning his love relationship. Love is very important for him, and death is very important for him. So love and death are the main subject for the romantic. He is a truly romantic. And when you're going to watch the film, you're going to understand what I'm saying. And obviously, we will discuss about it. In this, being a romantic during the French New Wave was not the best place. Being politically rebellious was the best place. And Jean-Luc Godard was the one who was rebellious and really politically. But still, Truffaut, in 1968, stand up in front of the barricade and really denied the Cannes Film Festival, and they closed it because nobody wanted to do it because he was so rebellious about the aspect of the politics. So you have somebody, a time, and somebody who is so complex that when you watch the film, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of different stories. So you have always in a film, the storyline, the technical, how technically it's done, and the message. These are the three things we'll talk. So when we finish, I will go through what the content of the film, what the technique of the film, and the message, and we'll have a Q&A. One thing I can tell you is that people forget all the time. In film, you have people who are on the back of the camera, who are as important than the director. When we talk about director and actors. We say, oh, this film is made by with what? In this film, you have one of the most extraordinary director of photography in the history. And Raoul Coutard is a man who did most of the film of the French New Wave, who invented ways of use a camera and use a film. So he really revolutionized the way of how we see movie. Of course, today we are in 2026. If you see this film, you don't think that there is something extraordinary about it, the way of technique is done, but it is. It is really, really a very big breakthrough. This is modern cinema. So this is really to give you really an approach in the beginning of the film. So thank you for coming, and after this we'll go take all the aspects of the film, and we'll have Q&A. So again, this is really more than just a film. It's like trying to just reconnect and to build a community of people who are coming, watching quality film. By doing this, you're doing much more than spending an afternoon in the movie. You are supporting good film, old film, and film who have quality film who come back in the surface, and I appreciate it. So thank you again for coming. It's really great to see so many people. Thank you. Not two people create the same thing. This film, there was never ever another film made close to that. So in the history of cinema, you have one thing, but you have one thing with a great film director, the great creator, they have and they find their own vision. Their own vision is always because it's close to who they are. So their struggle, their question, their interest appear in the creation. In this case, it's François Truffaut. François Truffaut is a very complex person. And from the time that he was early 20s, he was all the time questioning what love is. The big idea is like on the back of everything is the romantic love, what it is. And now that we know, because we can go back on his life and look at his life, he was all the time falling in love with his actress. He was all the time in the search of something that he never got. And he was all the time in this kind of like what it is and getting into very complex relationship. So this at a young age, you see already the question, was the question of the romantic. The romantic at this question. I don't know if we can relate to people like Dante or any one of the people who are questioning what is love. It will all be always something impossible.
It's not something who is like all the time working out. It's always the impossibility of being in love, of having the other feeling you need or feeling who you are. This is what love is, and this search creates a very strong desire. So this is the base of the film, the base of the question of like what it is to look for in a relationship, something which can be really insane because of the intensity, but it's something impossible. So it's like the really base of the thing is like being with you, it's impossible, and not being with you, it's impossible. So there is impossibility in all this kind of situation. Well, really the great love stories, well, they can be Tristan and Isolde or anything else. Whatever you're going towards something to catch it, you cannot catch it. But this, what the difference is, it's like it's, just, the difference, it's really, the difference is based on the center of Catherine. So you have these two characters, these two men, and she is the center. And that is really what makes the film so strong. We are in 1960. 1960 is the beginning of life. Beginning of the really questioning of like what is a woman relation into this.
C'est la vie.
Let me just see if. So this the relationship are all questioned at the time of the 60s, but the position of the woman are questioning. So like this fast pace, and this gone. If it has to be gone, we want to live it strongly. French New Wave are very special, but Truffaut is even more special than this because he will live like this all his life. The last few films that he made, he just talked about the same thing all his life. He made a film as like The Man Who Loved the Woman, where he talked about this. The Woman Next Door is one of his last films. He talked about this. He talked always about this impossibility to love fully or to make love something viable. Maybe it's better. Yeah, so what he's trying to do that is trying to tell and expose a question. So this is really what the difference between regular or like very average film where you have a story was done and it's locked and closed with something open, a lot of questions. So when I say you have to watch this film several times, yes you do, because it's full of different questions. One thing you have to remember, it's a real story. It's based on the biographical life of, it's, yeah, I got it. Okay. His biography, so he was Henri Pierre Rocher. Henri Pierre Rocher was somebody who lived at the time of World War I, who had a friend, an Austrian friend, and all the stories that you see really very closely when he writes, it is biography. Only thing was different. The last scene, because this woman still was alive, when the movie came out, and she came to see the movie. So we know that the whole film, the whole biography, step by step, everything was very close to the real story about what he was living. So when they look for the actors, the first, what's supposed to be Henri Pierre Rocher, the writer, it is tall man called Henri Serre, with this kind of like very passionate attitude, but still very connected to something more like in control, and who is losing control with Catherine. As the other one, the Austrian, who had a very difficult and different kind of relationship. He was an actor who drank a lot, and he died very kind of young, like in his 50s. He plays in a couple of more movies with François Truffaut, but Henri Serre was making one film. He made this film. He was very well known for this film, and after he did not do very well. So, but at the center you have Jeanne Moreau, who is a star at the time. She's very, very well known, and she loves this idea, because that singer too had like a lot of questions with her relationship with men, because she had a relationship with François Truffaut during the film. They were like a couple. She went after this with the film that you will watch, the next one with Ascenseur pour les chevaux. She had another relationship with Rimal. These people were really experimenting in a lot of different ways at that time. We are like in the 60s, and we are re-questioning everything about society. So besides this kind of like very strong actors following what Truffaut wanted from them, there is two things you should know who are very, very important about techniques. That's the first thing, that there is no direct sound taking on the set. So when you see them, there is no sound man. Everything is taken with a camera. They don't take the sound. They will do the sound in post-production. So they say their line, but they are not really taping or anything else. They're taping the visual, but they don't tape the sound. What is the reason? For two reasons. The camera at the time was very, very loud. So if you had a very loud camera, you could not have a sound because it would pick up the sound of the camera. And the same thing, they could work really more precisely on the line. So they see their line, it's shot, and when they go in the studio, they redo the whole dialogue one by one. Everything is written down, script. The written is there, but not the visual. So this is really what we have. We have the sound, that is the story and the script and the scene, but the visual in a regular film, we call this a storyboard. One like really, a lot of people, they draw the scene by scene, and they say, oh, you're gonna be there, let's go, let's start, okay, let's go to the scene. This was not acting like this. At the last minute, Truffaut was changing everything, and technically is one of the most unbelievable different films that people ever watch. Because first, the camera is over the shoulder. In film up to now, we take the camera and we put it on a tripod. We do step by step, and we go telling you a story. Now it's done. It's not the same. They're breaking the rule by Raoul Coutard, who is the director of photography, which takes the camera over his shoulder and move. So they move, and you see a lot of things will not be allowed at that time. The camera going from one person to another one like this. You don't do this. It's a no-go for a film school. Even film school today, they will say, don't do this. One. So they break all the rules. Freezing the frame, suddenly she laughs, and they freeze the frame. Nobody does this. This is like if you were taking all the rules you were supposed to do for a good film, and you cut them, and you just don't do this. The voiceover of a film who is always a voiceover, it's a no-go. You don't do this at that time. So everything that you are watching today, who is really looking at as techniques, you say, what's the difference? This is 1960. It's like more than 60 years ago. The way they were doing things were very, very aggressive in the way the film is made. So besides the story, besides the actors, the three actors who are very, very strong in their way, you have the story of Truffaut really experimenting film. It is third feature film. So third film for somebody so well known is not so much. And he did one movie before, was a really big flop. So he had 400 Blows, who was a very big success. He was another one who's called Ne tirez pas sur le pianiste, with Charles Aznavour, was a great singer, where he was a flop. He really lost everything, he was not doing well, and he did this one after. So he was really on the edge of like, what do I do with the film to come back and making some money or some commercial success. Every little detail that he is like in control, but he left the crew improvise sometime in how they were talking or what they were saying, but still, everything is written down. One thing that is very, very important too, it's the music. Besides the music that it's playing, there is a song, the Tourbillon de la Vie, where she sings about this, how life is. This was written by the guy who is playing the guitar, who is, his name on the film is called Bastiak, but his name is Serge Rezvani. And what he did, he really composed the song, really trying to reflect on the film. That everything is turning around, everything is going one by one, and we're going back to the same thing. And more or less, the film is doing this. She goes here, she goes there, she goes here, she goes there. But the only way that she can really finish the film is by her finishing it and just giving her life, because she cannot live like this. She has to go with him or live with him, or die with him, or not being able to just have a regular life. So beside the element of like a regular story, you have obviously like the technical aspect of it and the message. And the message, really the message for Truffaut will be all his life. He was married twice, multiple affairs, and he was married the last time with Fanny Ardant that he had directed in a film, actually The Woman Next Door with Gerard in the 1980s. So he died just right after that. So the strength of his vision, of his messages, of what we're struggling with it, his expression, is on the film. So all the elements there are really kind of questioning. We are in the time we question society. Today, if you show this to somebody, you know what they will tell you? They will tell you, oh, she's not, she's crazy. Okay, she might be crazy, but she re-questions who she is. She re-questions situation. They re-question everything. Do I have to be married or I don't have to be married? Is this the way to do it? And when Sorel, who is one of the professors of Henri Serre, tell him, so what are you going to do with your life? He said, well, I don't have anything to do. So he said, be curious. That, I love that, because this is really the word of the 60s. Travel, experiment, be curious, live fully, even if you disappear. But this is really what this film became like such a strong vision of what the youth of the 60s, you know, what they were and they were looking for. And we are like at the beginning of the French New Wave. This is not 1972, you are in 1960, where these people are at the beginning of like this cry to revolution. The rebellion will go from 1961 to 1968, strongly, where in 1968, the student revolution in France, you know, blew up completely, and Paris was blocked for like more than 6 months, where everything was stopped, and everybody on, wow, everything is open-ended. This is an open-ended film too, because you agree with one or the other? What do you think about her? This is like based of discussion, based of questioning, based of trying to see what does he want to say, and you can have a lot of things to say. So you can really take Henri Serre, and who is trying to not being attracted by her, but he is, and who is going to be really like a victim of her desire, because he didn't do anything. He didn't really want to go in this car. She took him, and she died with him. She didn't want to let him go to have a regular life. And that is really another thing, you know, it's really very, very strongly, even more than questioning, it's kind of putting you in the stage of like, what did she want from this man? Of course, it's the role of the femme fatale, you know, but Truffaut did not like this. When they told him, when he was in the stage, they say, many organizations of women say, thank you very much to show the strength of a woman who can really, who does not have to be a slave to a relationship, who can be very independent. He did not want that. He said, I don't want to be like somebody who carries a feminist movement. He was more a humanist, questioning what human being can do in this situation, and how do they, or where do they go, and what is life about. A lot of statement about life, statement about love, statement about living in society. These people too are like, you know, running around and trying to find a way, and at the middle of everything, World War I. World War I was the most cruel war. I don't know if you, I mean, history show it. It was such a terrible war. People used to go out of trenches and fight with bayonets, you know, physically. You know, it was very, very, very raw. From World War I came out the most powerful art movement. The surrealists came from World War I, out of World War I. Guillaume Apollinaire, the great poet, came out from World War I. So you have a lot of like reference to this art movement, who were very rebellious movement. So we are in the 60s in a rebellious movement, and we are after World War I, who is a very rebellious movement. And I mean, if you read, Picasso was really in World War I, and you can see there is a couple of Picasso on the wall, you know. So there is a lot of statement about we are in the 60s, we are rebellious, we're going to re-question everything. I re-question everything as a human, as a person, but they did it in World War I. And after the war, everything just was re-questioned, and he did like some really, the question of like how Picasso came in the 1914, 1915, 16, just after the war. 1918, when the war was finished, all this very, very strong political, social, and really rebellious. You had Dada. I don't know if you know the term Dada. Dada was really a rebellious movement, artistic based. Not go without politics. We are involved in politics and we have to act in politics. So you have these two movements, I mean, and these two movements do not exist. In cinema today, this does not exist. Does not exist. There is no question or very little question of really making reflection on humanity and very, very little question about political statement. Very rare. Most of the film today have not this sense of highly demanding of what a film should be. So here it's like the beginning of from the 60s to certainly the end of the 90s, where we have all these films who are questioning, but this especially is very, very strong. We have the music with school, the French music who goes at the time too, but really the art and the statement of the French New Wave were something who carry today. Today we have the other part of the movement of film who are doing the other independent filmmakers. So this is like, for the independent filmmaker, this is a moral. It's a moral of like, how do you make a film? You question, and you put out something like this who's going to bring question out there. So when you come out from a film like this, you have question. You can say whatever you want. And you're going to think about it. It's not like, you know, I mean, people who knows me because I've been presenting a lot of this film. A film is meant you to reflect. So you're going home and you're going to reflect. You're going to say, what does he want to say by that? Or what is this? Why is this happening? The goal has been always in European cinema or in the cinema of that time or like any creative, we are questioning. We do not give you answer. And this is a typical of that. 400 Blows was the same one too, and Breathless of Godard and all the film. And the film you're gonna watch, the next with the Louis Malle movie, it is the same too. It's taking from a book, change, and re-question everything. So now I'm waiting for your question because I know I talk a lot. I try to cover as much as I can, but everybody has a way of looking at this. Or if you have a question about the production, or the pre-production, or the post-production, please don't hesitate. Let's start with whoever wants to. Yes, please.
Yeah, I have a question about the film must end. The story ends in 1933 because there's this scene. Where the Nazis are throwing the books into the fire.
Yes.
And then it ends with the crematoria, so to speak, because the bodies are burned.
Yeah.
And then the very final music was a little jarring because it's almost like he's skipping down the pathway and there's happiness. And I don't know, I was just wondering if you could comment on that.
Yeah.
Clearly, in my mind, he's trying to make a statement about, and maybe it's during this time when France is being called into accountability for their role during the Holocaust. I don't know.
I mean, the burning books is too showing, how these things are, the idea of like a history repeat itself, how we are from World War I. World War I, at the end of World War I, everybody thinks that the war will be at peace, I mean, when we stop this. In 1934, with 33, Hitler came in power. 1934, 5, and 6, we have all this really peace movement coming in France. So we think, when we see film like The Grand Illusion of 1937, we think at that time, we want peace and war comes back. So there is this really tourbillon la vie, this song saying, we are going into a circle, but the world going into the circle. That is one thing. The second thing was important is like, it was rare that people were incinerated like this, in France. It was not really so usual. Truffaut was very close to his father-in-law, and he saw that. And he saw that was interesting because we don't just watch somebody, we watch the ashes. We watch the body being burned. Could it be a really connection to World War II? Certainly, he had all these kind of like images who had to be connected with this. And the other thing that I forgot to tell you, when he leaves the cemetery, it's like he say, and now I felt like it was a relief. I don't know if you remember, he said, it's a relief. That's like all he has been living on this intensity of like, you know, love, and this intensity now it's a relief. So there is all these symbols who are crossing one into the other. But the idea of like the circle, of like life, the thing are coming back. When they did too, they took a lot of the footage, the real footage, you know. So they took the footage, and they cut the footage and they make close-up of the footage, so you see it very well. And the burning books was really a very big thing for these people. These people are intellectuals. This was certainly the most difficult for the artistic community, is to see the burning the books. They were burning like, you know, like the psychoanalysts. They were burning the paintings, you know. Picasso, you know that Picasso is a very good, interesting story. Picasso was in Paris during the occupation. You know, he was in Paris during the occupation, so the Germans were on his back, but he was a very, very strong personality. Everybody was afraid of Picasso. Picasso was like, he didn't want to leave. He said, I am in Paris, I stay in Paris. So the German used to come to his house all the time and bothering him, but he was really a very strong person. They would have loved to destroy his work, but they didn't. They didn't. They had even some people coming from everywhere to buy his work, but really this idea of destroying any intellectual things was very touching for them, and for the people who were like all intellectuals. It was really very painful, you know, and very horrible. For us too, even now when you look at this, you see what? You know, it's hard to believe.
And the movie started out with her burning men's lives, which was burning letters.
Sure. This too. So you can see, I mean, when you watch the film, you see how things can be related. The other thing which is very, very important is the body of water. There is a lot of water in this film. There is a lake, you know, there is all this, you know, the water when they go to the beach, and after at the end where they're going. Like there is all this, but remember, you know, if we remember like the life of Truffaut, we remember 400 Blows. 400 Blows was really into a lot of things into water. So this could be like an interpretation of the symbol, but he did not. He did not. The Truffaut was not somebody who made an interpretation about this film. He let the film go and they go around, they go out with this woman, but you don't see them, you know, doing anything, because this was too the question: what do we do? Do we continue working? Do we do anything, or are we trying to find what is our goal? What is life should be for us? And I think this is really, we are in it. One thing I have to tell you too, and I say it all the time, that I forgot to mention, 1961 in France into, and I say it all the time because I talk a lot about the French New Wave, they are in the worst war that they ever were before. The Algerian War was the most bloody war, and the French New Wave is a product of the Algerian War. For the reason that it was like a little bit very typical of Vietnam, and I can tell you because I was in France when I was in 1960. I remember looking at, I mean, I was a little kid, but I was looking at things, and there was like all these young men who were talking, and they were sent them to Algeria, killed for absolutely nothing. And of course, you had De Gaulle at this time who say, you know, Algeria was French. Algeria was French since 1830. So he say, Algeria will stay, and will stay French, will stay in Algeria, they will stay in Algeria, and he sent these kids getting killed. And of course, there was a big rebellious movement, especially from the left, saying, no, what is this? What are you doing? You are colonizing them, and it was this rebellious. So the rebellious is here, in a different way maybe, but it is too rebellious against society. So this is a very important of these windows of, you know, 1962 is really the end, because the independence in 1961, 1962 is the end. Everybody is getting out of Algeria, but after what? After a lot of people died, after a lot of demonstration, a lot of really horrible things. So you have this background too. So a film, just what we have to remember, a film is based of so many different things to come to this product that unless you try to really understand a little bit about this, it's difficult to understand, or you take one aspect of it. But more aspect you take, and more you realize that it's a product of art who is really talking to you about society. It's for this today, the film that you are watching, they are very flat. There is flat because I don't think that there is, I mean, I don't want to say, there is of course rebellion for some people, but there is not the rebellion of the 60s today. Absolutely not. Everything is like following certain things, and you don't have that. You don't have that. I mean, if you go to other countries, you see that the political rebellion is all the time related, and you can see it through the film or through the art form. Anything even like for, yeah.
No, I was thinking, the scenes of the trench war in World War I, that was phenomenal. Where did they get those from? That was the real McCoy.
Yeah, yes, they went to the museum. There is a museum in France with the Museum of the Army. And they went there, they took most of them, and what they did, they recut it. They took the footage, and they just said, they was at the time, now of course we get to digitalize, but at the time, they really took picture of this and making closer, and they are really good, because there was even, and I love that, because this grainy thing remind me, it is a film, but it is history, and that I love that, it doesn't make it dream.
And I think Nina Mueller is swept away at
Sure.
the beginning when she shows all the explosions, and
Yeah.
so that reminded me of that.
Yeah, I mean, Linda Mueller is another one, 1976. You have, I mean, I love that. Because Linda Mueller said in 1976, she had 3 films in New York City at the same time. And we're talking like really great film, I mean, like very, very strong films. And just to show you what today is. Today you don't have any kind of film like this. If they are like this, they are pushed it on the way by the big studio. But she is really one of the great directors of. And I think when I show the Italian film, the series, I'm talking about showing one of her films. So very, very. The footage, the real footage, can be really strong into the dreaming aspect of cinema. You go, you're going to see something, and you say, up, here it's the world, here it's the history.
I'm thinking that they all saw Truffaut's film, so it was implanted in their brain when they made
But I think Werner is much more into the World War II aspect of it. I'm not saying this so negatively, because people need to think about something else, but they need to have this kind of like light things and not being able to just deal with this, because this seems to be too heavy, and I don't want to think about my life, and I don't want to think about my problem, or I don't want to think the problem of the world. I want to be able to just forget. Yeah.
What left me questioned was at the end when, after Catherine tried to kill Jules, that he went back to that situation.
Oh, like she tried to kill him?
Yeah, right, when she tried to kill him with the gun.
Yeah.
But then he returns back to the scene with them again.
Yeah.
And gets in the car with her,
Yeah.
the crazy woman.
But don't you think it's about the craziness of the film too, It is the craziness of the film. How she say, I don't want to see you, I want to see you, don't go, come back, here. It's like this kind of like insane.
Rational.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
But it's insane, look at this film, it's pretty insane. And, even the end is crazy.
Yes.
Why does she take him and she kills him and she dies with him because she cannot get him or she cannot stay with him? So this kind of like you can try to put logic. We can try to put logic in it. No logic. And it's a real story. I mean, this is like for sure, and it's something up to the end. The end is not real. It was romanticized. It was finished like this. But up to the end, all the relationship with these 2 people or these 3 people were like real. But it's really this kind of thing like we are so used to want to see things who are more linear. When we see things who are not like that, we are kind of lost. And it is more life. This is more life than I think something straight in general. Life is full of mess, full of questions like this. Something like this could ever happen. I mean, even so, it's so crazy. And we all know people who have relationships who are completely insane, I mean, there is plenty of this in the world, like, it's not that it's missing. But when we watch a film, we don't want that. We want something with like much more like regular, maybe.
What's great
Yeah.
How these relationships languished over the mail and,
Yeah.
crossed through the mail. And that, like, now, people are texting and then go back and forth and,
Yeah, if you want to sign up here, just put down your email.
It's frenetic to us, because we're watching it, but the pace could be so drawn out that,
Yes, this is another thing too, when you have a length of movement, it's where you have the development of character. People will say, well, we see her being crazy. Why do we